Right, welcome back. And of course, we come now to our interview of the morning, the first one up this morning. And this pertains to the City of Johannesburg, which will have to wait for at least until the end of this week to get a new mayor. And this comes after voting for the new mayor did not materialise yesterday. Now, councillors of the different political parties asked for endless caucus breaks that lasted just about the entire day. And this prompted the Speaker of Council, Coleen Makhubele, to postpone the voting for the mayor to Friday. Now, last month, Jama-ah's Thapelo resigned from the position of mayor after facing a no-confidence motion and leaving the city without a mayor. Now, just like other metros in Gauteng, such as Ekurhuleni and Tshwane, the city of Johannesburg has also been marred with instability because of these breakdowns in the coalitions. So to discuss this matter extensively, we joined virtually by Dr Mpho Phalatse from the DA. She is, of course, the caucus leader in the Joburg City Council. Funzi Ngobeni is Action SA's Gauteng chairperson and the Joburg caucus leader. And joining us for some analysis is Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, who's the director of the Centre for the Advancement of Non-racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University. I must indicate we did also invite other political parties, but they did not respond to us in time. So without much further ado, thank you so much, gentlemen, and Dr Mpho Phalatse for joining us this morning. So starting off, the City of Johannesburg, and we've seen these coalition parties continue to struggle to reach agreement, and we saw that again playing out in full colour yesterday, and we're still without a mayor. So let me start with you, Dr. Phalatse, and the same question to Mr. Ngobeni. Why are we struggling in the city to form a government and find stability for the city?
A very good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. Well, this goes back to the election in November 2021. The outcome of that election left us with a hung municipality. No single party got an outright majority, which meant that the city was going to be governed in a coalition. Now, you'll recall that I was elected mayor that day on the 22nd of November 2021 with only 26% of the vote, which means we had a 26% minority government. What that means is that you can't govern properly without the help of other political parties, because for certain decisions in council, you need at least a 50% plus one number of seats to make those decisions. For instance, you can't pass budgets, you can't approve integrated development plans, and so on. Now, what we immediately did is we called on other political parties to see if we can form a more stable government, a majority government, to get us over the line, over the 50% plus one line, so that we could govern uninterrupted. And it took a bit of time. We only announced the mayoral committee on the 13th of December, a few weeks later. And later on, you'll recall that the PA also joined us, and we ended up at 140, which was a very comfortable position considering. Unfortunately, the horse trading never stopped. It continued. Even though we were in government, people were still looking for better positions. They were talking to the ANC and its partners, and that's where we started to see cracks forming, with people starting to contribute towards the collapse of that government. And I believe that what's behind this is really the horse trading, the fact that people want better positions. You'll recall, for instance, Coleen Makhubele started out as a chair of chairs with only one seat in that council, and she wanted more, and she ended up being speaker, and she had to cross over to the ANC side to get that, and that's how things started to really collapse.
Mr. Ngobeni, from your side?
Yeah, no, thank Sakina, and good morning to the viewers. Indeed, I mean, the instabilities is as a result of parties unable to find each other. I think from our side, we have always been available to engage with other partners to see whether we can be able to regain the majority that we lost. And it's unfortunate that, we have not been able to do so. I think this recently is as a result of the DA obviously refusing to accommodate the PA into our coalition. And subsequently to that, as we go towards this council meeting, the DA unilaterally obviously taking a decision that they will fill their own candidate without engaging the rest of the former partners. So I think that as Mpho has indicated, I mean, it's an issue of political parties and leaders are unable to find each other to form a majority. And on the other side, they are doing everything possible to rope in people that are unhappy in our coalition, and make sure that they are able to form that majority. And at the moment, they are struggling to maintain that majority. And it's an opportunity for us to be able to come in and stabilize, and that is why Action SA and other parties like Freedom Front, ACDP, UIM have come together and have decided that they need to put an alternative that can be able to have a pathway towards victory, and that pathway was possible yesterday, but unfortunately the delays that were caused by the other parties, which are on the faction of the ANC and the EFF, have caused us to eventually the Speaker deciding to adjourn the meeting.
So when you talk about that pathway to victory, Mr. Ngobeni, does that mean that the coalition led by the DA has finally decided on a single candidate? Because the last I checked, both you and Dr. Phalatse were supposedly going to be put forward as two names to contest for that position.
Yeah, the pathway to victory that we are referring to, Sakina, is the fact that, as you know, the Action SA have put myself as a candidate, and the other parties are backing my candidature, and we believe that the other parties that we have been talking to, the PA and the minority parties that have been voting with the ANC, will be able to get us into the second round of this election. And once we are in the second round, we hope that the Democratic Alliance, because by then they will have lost the first round, they will then ensure that we get the majority that we need to defeat the ANC and the EFF. And that's the pathway that we were talking about, that we were looking forward to yesterday. But now that it didn't materialize, it gives us time to continue to engage with the Democratic Alliance to say, let's solidify this possibility for us to save this city. There's possibility for us to bring stability into this city and be able to deliver sustainable service delivery. And that can be possible if the DA can be able to come on board and get into the match and play with us in regards to saving this city of Johannesburg.
So, Dr. Phalatse, the allegation seems to be that the DA isn't playing nice with its coalition partners. So what's your response to that?
Yeah, thank you, Sakina. It's very important to clarify things. The reason we were ousted in the first place in January this year is because the PA crossed over to the ANC side. Now, what we don't want as the Democratic Alliance is to find ourselves having another motion of no confidence and another election of mayor 3 months down the line, with the ANC, with the PA moving from side to side. We need guarantees that there's going to be stability. This is not about governing at all costs. It's about governing and being able to provide services to our residents in a stable, consistent manner, and finally building the city. The city is broken and needs repair. It's not going to happen in 3 months. It needs a longer time frame for that to happen. All the Democratic Alliance is saying is that the position of the PA currently, where in certain parts of the country, the PA is working with the ANC to unseat governments with the DA and other political parties, it's unclear as to how the PA wants to posture itself, especially ahead of 2024. And you'll recall, Sakina, that all projections suggest that in 2024, we're going to end up with a coalition government at a national level, and there's a likelihood that even some provinces will end up in coalition, Gauteng being one of them. Now, the concern is, how ready are we to give South Africa stable governments at a provincial and at a national level? This conversation about Johannesburg cannot be only focused on Johannesburg. It cannot be about being in government today without looking at the bigger picture. We don't want to put the country in a position where there's instability and a change of government every 3 months. All the DA is asking is the PA must come to the table and commit once and for all. And we must be sure that if we put in a government, it's going to be a stable government.
But seemingly it's not just about the PA, because here you have Action SA and the other parties putting up a candidate to go up against you. So the other coalition partners seemingly also not happy with how the DA is handling the situation, Dr. Phalatse.
The other coalition partners aren't happy with the DA's position on the PA's commitment. That is the bone of contention. And I've explained why the DA feels it's important to get a commitment from the Patriotic Alliance so that we govern in a stable government and we're not flip-flopping on our residents. It's not fair on them. They need consistent, uninterrupted service delivery. Now, the other parties have an issue with that, and they've decided to side with Action SA, and that's okay. It's their right. It's their democratic right to do so. The Democratic Alliance has 71 seats in our council. Action SA and the other parties have 58 seats combined. We need to come together. Yes, we'll have a better chance if there's a party like the PA that backs us, but we need guarantees. This is not about governing for 3 months. It's about fixing the city.
Professor Ngomezulu, listening to the two parties with us here this morning and just looking at the situation in the city of Johannesburg overall, the victims, of course, in this power struggle are the people of Johannesburg who are just on the periphery while we watch all of this play out, a soap opera, if you will. What are your thoughts on what's happening here, Prof?
No, thank you very much, SK. I'm really happy that Dr. Phalatse has reminded us as to how we got to where we are right now. As a point of departure, if you have 26%, the question then becomes, why would you want to lead a municipality? Because it means that people have not given you the mandate. It's true that the ANC also did not get the mandate. Let us be correct, be fair on that one. The DA did not get the mandate, which is the second governing party nationally. Neither did the ANC get the full mandate to run the City of Johannesburg, and many others, of course, including Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, Nelson Mandela Bay, and all the like. So the problem here that we are facing, basically, SK, is that currently we don't have legislation. I've made this point on several occasions that at the moment, neither Africa as a continent nor South Africa as a country are ready for a coalition government. For the simple reasons that both Mr. Ngobeni and Dr. Phalatse are making, that you have a party that has 1 seat, you have a party that has 2 seats, but they make the loudest noise. The question is, if after the election you did not get the mandate that you expected from the electorate, on which grounds then do you make a ridiculous demand saying, I want to be a deputy mayor, I want to be a municipal manager, I want to be a speaker? On which grounds do you do that? Because the reality of the matter is that you have not been given a mandate. So that is where things start. So we have to work on legislation. Because what we see happening in Johannesburg currently is in fact a prelude to the crisis. As Dr. Phalatse was saying, everything that is happening now is basically giving us a dry run of what we are likely to see in 2024. Given the manner in which the ANC has been performing, both at the national government and at the provincial government, you can see numbers are consistently going down. You look at the DA, which is the official opposition, it has also been going down. The 3 parties that have shown an upward trend, one is the EFF, the other one is the Freedom Front Plus, and then the third one is the IFP. But none of these 3 parties will be ready to take over from the ANC. The DA is the closest, but then the DA itself also cannot at the moment take over from the ANC as single-handedly, which means, therefore, that come 2024, we are going to have a coalition government, and that coalition government will be unstable for the reasons all of us have stated. Mr. Ngobeni, Dr. Phalatse, and myself, we are all in agreement that the manner in which coalition governments are handled in South Africa is a disaster. And the reason is because there is no legislation. Under normal circumstances, if you don't have an outright winner, the party that has the highest number of votes should be the one given the first opportunity to form a government. Only after it fails would you then go to the second one. That will be a democratic practice because it would mean that you do have the numbers, but they are not enough for you to get the 50+1 threshold. So until we deal with legislation, we are in for trouble. Unfortunately, 2024 is around the corner. We're not going to be able to deal with this issue once and for all. So 2024, we'll find ourselves in the same situation. Lastly, SK, I'm particularly interested in what Mr. Ngobeni will say on this one. The last time I checked, Mr. Mashaba was saying that the reason why he moved out of the DA is because they could not see eye to eye on a number of issues. They couldn't agree. They couldn't read from the same script, and hence his decision to form Action SA. And then on several occasions, he indicated that he's not in a position to go back and work with the DA. And then all of a sudden, we find him in discussions with the DA in a coalition government. So then the question is, when he took the decision and he made that pronouncement, had he thought it carefully, or did he only make those statements at the heat of the moment? And then when reality sunk in, then he realized that, by the way, we still have a chance to discuss with the DA. So I think our politicians have to deal with the reality that at the moment, we have too many political parties, and it will be worse now that will even add independent candidates. So which means, therefore, that we'll have coalition governments which will be unstable because we don't seem to have a clue as to how those coalition governments are supposed to operate.
Let me come to you, Mr. Ngobeni. You'll have an opportunity to respond to what Prof has just indicated there, one, but also two, with regard to the finances of the City of Johannesburg, which is a very key point here, because when Dr Mpho Phalatse was still the mayor, there was talk about a 2 billion rand loan. Then we had the mayor who just resigned, Thapelo talk about a 9 billion rand loan that the city was negotiating. So let's talk about those loans. What have happened? Because regardless of the power struggles that you guys have to form a government, I would imagine you all have a handle on what's going on in the back office in finance. So what is going on with the city's finances, Mr. Ngobeni?
Yes, again, I think the first thing maybe to respond to Dr. Mngomezulu is that we have been in a coalition since the beginning of the after the 2021 national election, and one of our partners, key partner, has been the DA. We have repeatedly indicated that we will work with all like-minded political parties, except the ANC, and that has been made clear by our president at all times. So I'm quite surprised that Dr. Mngomezulu is asking that question. But to come back to your question, Sakina, we are now confronted with obviously another request for a 1.8 billion loan, which, by the way, it is part of the financial plan of the city that we adopted in 2022, and that report was supposed to be tabled in the city. The finances of the city are not obviously something that we should all be proud of. I think even during our term, Dr. Phalatse will confirm that we are putting strategies together to turn around the financial stability of the city, and part of that was disrupted with these motions of no confidence. The issue is that the revenue collection in the city has not reached the targets that we have set ourselves, and that in itself put a strain in the service delivery of services to our residents, and that is what we currently have. The 2 billion that was approved, we are waiting for obviously a report in council that will indicate how that 2 billion has been used and how far it has gone in terms of paying our debts and ensuring that service providers have been paid, and everyone is and the operation of the city has been assisted by that 2 billion. It's the report that needs to come to council, and with these delays that we are seeing, these are important reports that the residents of the city are waiting for, and now we are being delayed by these parties who are undecided on their candidates, who are also working with the speaker to adjourn council, irregularly. But I think once we have those reports, it's important that they must be made public so that the residents can know exactly how the funds of the city are being used.
Yeah, and this is the problem for the residents. We're looking on, and we know that, there isn't obviously much going on in terms of running the city, because we see the dilapidation all around us, because there's a power struggle between the elite in the city. But Dr. Phalatse, from your side, and also if you can indicate, is the city in the process of negotiating a 9 billion rand loan, or was it doing that at any point, and why?
So just to give a bit of background on how city finances work, particularly in the City of Johannesburg, our funding model is made up of three main sources. The first being own revenue, that's money that we collect for rates and taxes. There's an issue there in that, one, people are moving out of the city of Johannesburg. There's what we call the semigration. We're seeing a lot of people move to the Western Cape in search of better services. The city of Joburg is broken and has been for a long time, but also with load shedding and the way that our network in Johannesburg is configured, we're not able to insulate certain clients or customers from load shedding. The City of Cape Town network allows that, and so we're also losing big business. For instance, Clover left Johannesburg to Cape Town. With that, we lose their revenue as well, as an example. But you also have non-revenue areas. You've got non-revenue water, non-revenue electricity. So we've got losses, and this is due to theft on the one hand, where there's illegal connections as an example. But there's also many areas that aren't getting billed, as you know, and there's overall resistance to billing. So our ratepayer base is small, and it's also shrinking because of this semigration and people leaving the city. Now that affects the amount of money that's coming into the city's coffers. That's number one. Number two, we get money from equitable shares. So from national through the Divisional Revenue Act, we get grants and subsidies. That is the second. The third one is loans. Now, we are allowed to get loans in order to help us where there is a mismatch in our outflows and our inflows. What's happening in the city of Johannesburg currently is that we have a challenge with revenue collection. I've already said that our revenue base is shrinking on the one hand. Load shedding is affecting us. We're not selling as much electricity as what we used to. So that's also affecting us. And thirdly, we also have non-paying residents, and that continues to be a challenge. There's Operation Teto that is trying to deal with that. What we then need is to bring in the loans to help us address the gaps. But loans are also legislated, and you can't overburden your fiscus with loans because you've got to be able to repay those loans. Now, what is happening with the former mayor's mention of the 9.5 billion rand loan is that, firstly, the former mayor did not understand city finances. There's a draft budget that has been tabled already. It's going around for public participation. There is no 9.5 billion in that. So there is no mechanism to even bring that money into the city as we speak. The 2 billion rand loan was in the books and we could have brought it in. We tried and they brought it in way late. We had concerns about their repayment plan, and like Councillor Ngobeni has already indicated, they still need to come back to us and explain how they are handling that.
Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time. But, Prof, let me give you just a final word with regard to what is being said. Loans having to be taken by the city to fund, the city's day-to-day running. And at the same time, trampling on the rights of those residents who are paying, because the city in all these years haven't been able to actually build certain areas. And why should some of the residents be saddled with that? Prof?
No, thank you very much, SK. Maybe let me start off by saying that the point that Dr. Phalatse is making is a very critical one. If there is emigration from the city, under normal circumstances, we would expect that pressure would also ease, because then it means that the population is no longer where it's supposed to be. But at least, I do understand that there might be other technicalities. So if people are not paying, obviously, then the municipality won't be able to do that. But now my take is, if you do have a share from a government, national government, as is usually the case, and the provincial government as well, and then you are only running short of money that you would ordinarily collect from the taxpayers, then it means that you have to plan as a collective. In this case, starting with this election of a mayor, you have Action SA, which is working together with the DA, but they are fielding two candidates. Already you have a problem there, because it means that you are not going there as a collective, and there is no way that will agree on budgetary matters if you don't agree at a political level. So I think it starts from there for me. But yes, the issue of the loans will be an ongoing thing. Unfortunately, national government is doing the same thing. We are borrowing money year in and year out, and that is basically where municipalities are taking a cue from. It starts from national government, and we are stuck with this problem. As to for how long, I'm not too sure if we'll be able to sustain these loans, because when you pay back given the fact that we've been grey listed, then of course we have more problems coming forward than the ones that we have currently.
Well, thank you so much there to our guest this morning, Dr Mpho Phalatse, the DA caucus leader in the City of Joburg Council. Funzi Ngobeni is Action SA's caucus leader in the Joburg City Council, and Professor Bheki Mngomezulu is director of the Centre for the Advancement of Non-racialism and Democracy at the Nelson Mandela University. And of course, discussing some of the reasons why the City of Johannesburg is marred with instability in its leadership.